Can I ask what attracted you to this sector in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually, in my career, started out, I used to work in banking, and I
You were at
also was a
JP
real estate
Morgan
agent.
Chase for a while, right?
I was at JP Morgan Chase, but even in my early career, I
Mm.
started out of college. I was working in banking. My first job out of college, out of undergrad, I was a real estate agent. I got my licensing, and I started working in communities with people, primarily people of color. I have my own story of my family around homeownership that meant a lot to me, and it also helped me to see how critical homeownership can be to changing the entire trajectory of a family.
Hmm.
From my own experience, my father was a veteran, got a VA loan for $35,000 to buy a home for my family in the Bronx in New
Hmm.
York. And then my parents went on to use equity that they built up in that to buy us a home in the suburbs of New York and raise us there. They also were able to support us in putting down payments on our first homes in our early 20s, me and my siblings. I mean, you could see, I experienced in my own life what a difference access to homeownership meant to our family. It gave opportunities for us to live in certain neighborhoods, to be educated in a system that my parents thought were really safe, and they wanted to make sure we had access to. And so all of those dynamics are just formative to me for my career. And then from my early banking and real estate, just helping other families get into homeownership was a real important thing to me because I knew what it meant for me.
It's
The other piece of I'll just say pivotal
Yep.
moment for my career was the work, in '07 and '08 when the housing crisis happened and the Great Recession occurred. What I saw, I stood in a place where we were working on the ground in communities that were facing incredible foreclosures and loss of homeownership, loss of wealth, trying to stand up programs to save those people, save those homes during what was a real just tragic time. And that really had a disproportionate effect on families of color. So I saw the stripping of wealth and all that was happening during that time. And I was sitting in a seat at the time where I was working with the Treasury and others to try to stabilize things. And that was a real formative moment for me in my career, recognizing that we have to make sure that our system can support all people, all communities in a way that is fair and equitable, and we cannot leave anyone behind. And so that's been my focus all along,
well,
and
it's
everything I've
it,
done since then.
it's interesting the '08 crisis. There have been some concerns about not a full repeat. Obviously, we've had regulation come out of it, but with the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, for example, do you feel like we've learned the lessons of '08, or are there flags for you, warning flags that give you pause?
I'd say we are in such a better position now, and the system is stronger from what we learned and legislation that went into place, regulation that went into place since 2008. That I would just say that this moment, while it's significant and it is a stress on the banking system and other parts of the ecosystem, we're in a very different place. This is a very different situation, and companies are stronger, companies are well capitalized, banks are the liquidity is flowing in the system. Access to credit is still there. We also have not seen the deterioration in home prices and some of the other things that we experienced back then. And so I do think that this is a very different time. It's a stressed time nonetheless, but I do think that a lot of the support that was put in place through different programs over the years, and the way that we saw the response in the early part of the pandemic in 2020 and everything that went into play, that this administration has carried out since, to ensure that there was a good recovery and that people were not losing their homes. We've seen low foreclosure rates. I mean, those things are all, and we still have a very strong market. We saw during the pandemic, people buying homes, a lot of refinancing that went on. People got unprecedented low rates during that time. And so now I feel like we're kind of on the brink of that recovery period. But also a time that is very where we're trying to stabilize things for the future and make sure that the systems that are there to support people are intact.